Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Scrimshaw Show. My name is Evan Scrimshaw. We are in a crisis in Ottawa. The Prime Minister may or may not stay as Prime Minister for much longer. Caucus seems to be implacably opposed, or at least significant portions of caucus seem to be implacably opposed to the Prime Minister's leadership. Rumors, allegations, sources that I've heard, the CBC has heard, numerous other places, have a majority of the non-cabinet vote and a vast majority of the non-cabinet and parlsec vote in caucus not believing the prime minister should lead. Well, I'm recording this Wednesday afternoon. It is 4:19 p.m. as I'm recording this. Any news that breaks after the next basically 20 minutes, we'll talk about at some future point. Um, but we are in a crisis. I've written, I think, four column four columns in the last 2 days. I'm going to be writing a fifth basically as soon as I finish recording this podcast. I did just pour myself a rum and coke, and it's entirely possible I pour myself another while I'm recording this. But this is where we are. The prime minister is in crisis. The prime minister's position is increasingly untenable for a very specific reason. It has nothing to do with him as a human being. It has nothing to do with dislike or animus towards him. The vast majority of the plotters, including my old boss, Wayne Long, Wayne, shout out to you. Come on the Scrimshaw Show on the 0.0% chance you or anybody in your office is listening to this. But what we are seeing, what we are fighting with, is a prime minister that is sufficiently fucked the Liberal Party, a prime minister's office that is sufficiently fucked the Liberal Party to the point where this was inevitable at some point, right? The October caucus meeting, it wasn't enough. The polls weren't bad enough yet. There was still enough time. There was still this looming thing of maybe the American election would save things. Well, it didn't, and things got worse. David Coletto came on my podcast 9 days ago. It feels like a lifetime ago. Shout out to David Coletto, by the way, first pollster to come in the field after Freeland's resignation on Monday. Shout out to you. But David Coletto came on my podcast, yes, and I asked him a simple question: would the Liberal Party be in a better place if they had listened to me and Justin Trudeau had resigned in the immediate aftermath of the St. Paul's by-election loss? That was June 24th, right? I wrote the column calling for him to resign June 25th, early morning. Well, I actually wrote the column the weekend before. That was a stunning thing where everyone just got really mad at me for openly admitting to pre-writing a column. Um, but I published that column June 25th, right? If Trudeau had announced July 4th, right, that he was going to resign, that there would be a leadership contest, and then there would be a new prime minister by Halloween, right? Would the Liberal Party be in a better place? They had done what I said to do that. And Coletto, he kind of wanted to hem and haw a little bit. He didn't want to speak in absolutes because he's a pollster and he speaks probabilities and things are uncertain and yada yada yada. All very legitimate things. But he basically agreed that yes, the Liberal Party would be in a better place. I have asked, I don't know, a dozen people in and around liberal politics if they would be in a better place if they had listened to me then in the last 6 weeks. I've asked that question. And every single time, everybody says yes. Now, doesn't mean it's for sure true, but it does mean that the party has a crisis. And the thing about the party is that it's refusing to acknowledge it has a crisis because it is systemically and systematically removed anybody with a dissenting opinion, right? In October, I have this from multiple Hill staffers that this happened, but in early October, I received a text from a Hill source of mine that uh, I know who it is. I'm not going to name the name, but a PMO staffer laid out the plan. They were going to spend the fall reminding people what they had accomplished, and then they were going to define Polyev in the spring, and that was their plan forward. Now, he texted me that, this source texted me that, not believing for a second it was going to work. But that was the plan. Now, they have wasted the 2.5 months since I received that text message doing fuck all because the Liberals refused to hand over documents that the House of Commons has ordered. And no, I don't care that it might be an unlawful order. The Speaker's ruled it in bounds. The House of Commons has spoken. You give the fucking documents But again, I digress because that's not really the point. But the PMO had a plan. PMO articulated a plan to cabinet ministers in October, and that plan has failed. The polls are now worse than they were the day I got that text. The polls were worse than they were at basically any point in the history of it. Abacus and Main Street have both recorded their lowest ever liberal vote shares for any singular liberal party in both of their pollsters' respective histories. It's game over. It's a disgrace. Justin Trudeau cannot lead the Liberal Party in the next election. I don't remember which of the various people it was, but somebody had it that if you use the Abacus certain to vote data, which was released, the Liberals would win 10 seats. 10 seats at the next election. They've come forth. 45% in Abacus. If you just use the normal numbers. And by the way, the Cloverdale Langley City by-election had the third biggest decline in a government vote share at an election in a by-election since 1993. If you go back a little bit further, there are a bunch of Mulroney by-elections from both the first and second terms that exceed that. But the thing about the first Mulroney term was that Mulroney broke 50% of the vote in a massive landslide. So and the resignations were high-profile names, which so that combination leads to them being there. And then the second Mulroney term was, of course, just an utter fucking shit show, leading to 2 seats. So again, I don't think, oh, but it happened under Mulroney too. Well, that doesn't really do anything for you. There have been 2 by-elections that has shown bigger swings. One was Labrador, and anybody who knows anything about Atlantic Canada knows that one, Atlantic Canada is much more based on individuals than the party brands. So personal votes are much bigger. Labrador in specific tends to have a bigger personal vote because it's Labrador and it's fucking massive. And 2, yes, John Chrétien did win the 1997 election, but Chrétien did face an Atlantic wipeout, going from 31 seats to, I believe, 11 in 1997. So that was an indicator of huge Atlantic problems, even if it wasn't necessarily indicative of a huge national problem. Cloverdale, 23% drop, third biggest, and third only to it. And again, Fort Mac 2014, again, Stephen Harper lost that election. The idea that everything is fine, no, it's not. Of course it's not. The polls, the by-elections, we've now lost 3 Liberal seats this year alone. There has to be a Halifax by-election called by the end of February, essentially, if there's not a general election. And frankly, we're about to get fucked there too. The NDP are going to win another seat easily. I think we won it by 3 last time. We don't have the incumbent anymore. And the Liberal votes down 20-something points. You know, that doesn't exactly look promising for us. But yeah, we're going to lose that one too if we don't have a general election called by then. The NDP have said that they're going to vote no confidence if Trudeau's prime minister when the House returns. So what we're looking at is either an April election, probably, because the Liberals would be able to delay confidence votes. They would be able to place some maneuvering to get the election to April to buy themselves a little bit more time if Trudeau stays and the NDP wants to do that. But yeah, you're looking at something like a late March, early April election with Justin Trudeau, or potentially an October one with somebody else. The party doesn't have any clue what the fuck it's doing. And the PMO have acted like everything is goddamn fun. What I want from the Liberal Party, what I think all of us want, is a viable party. If Justin Trudeau could lead a viable party, I would support him. I am not fanatically anti-Trudeau. I am not fanatically for anybody else. I had a conversation with a MP after the St. Paul's by-election. If you can probably guess who it is based on my history, and it is exactly who you're thinking it is. But I had a conversation with him after the St. Paul's by-election about, like, what the fuck do we do? And the point was made of, like, okay, so Trudeau, let's say Trudeau goes, who do we even think is the best option, right? And I couldn't like in that conversation could not go, well, it's obviously Anita Anand, who I have settled on, I think is my preferred leader if Trudeau goes. Right, I wrote the column suggesting the sort of informal and non Francois Philippe Champagne ticket, but like I couldn't sit here and go, there is an extremely obvious answer. Right, I think Christopher Freeland, for whatever praise we want to give her for what she did this weekend for precipitating this crisis and potentially being the most courageous person in liberal politics, I can't sit here and tell you that Chrystia Freeland would win 90 or 100 or 110 seats in the next election. I can't. I don't. I don't actually think she is the right person. I think she was a good, but not nearly as good as many people are claiming, finance minister, who is a not very good politician because she speaks a combination of like she's a journalist and an academic, and she's very good in those roles, and I just don't think she is particularly good at selling policies. And I think communications ability and that is very crucial to being the prime minister of the country. And the woman who invoked her family's Disney Plus membership in the conversation of fighting inflation, I just fundamentally do not believe is the right person to lead the party. But the question of leadership has always been the thing that has stopped this, right? If Chrystia Freeland was a dynamic and obvious successor, right? If she was polling amazing, if everybody liked her, if it was deemed that she was, super great, then yeah, Justin Trudeau would not be prime minister right now. He would have already gone. But the thing that is, sort of stemmed the tide, that has made people sort of, pause before sticking the knife in, proverbially, on Trudeau, has been this idea that they don't know that any of the available options are any better. But I think fundamentally, I do think in a fundamental way, at this point, it doesn't matter. Trudeau is polling so badly, and his last sort of ace in the hole of like, oh, maybe America will elect Trump and maybe we'll get some sort of boost out of it, has been proven to be untrue. And at the point at which that has been proven to be untrue, I don't know what the Liberal Party does other than get rid of him. Because the people are like, oh, well, a new leader might get Kim Campbell. We're going to get Kim Campbell or as close to Kim Campbell with Trudeau anyways. We're polling in the low 20s, guys. Abacus has, a percentage of people who think we deserve to be reelected at 11. 27% of liberal voters in 2021, not Canadians, liberal 2021 voters, people who voted for a liberal in 2021. 27% of them think this government deserves to be reelected. It is functionally impossible to make a case for what 4 more years of liberal government will do. Right? The case for the liberals is things that we have already done and stopping the conservatives from doing bad things. But nobody can articulate what the next 4 years look like, what the point of another 4 years of this government is. What is there left to do? What is the big idea we need to solve? Nothing. They don't have a big idea. They don't have any fucking ideas. This cabinet that should have been shuffled 6 fucking months ago, we still have an environment minister who can't speak English. We had a finance minister that lacked significant credibility with the public, who, again, I am not out here to claim that Chrystia Freeland was the greatest minister solely because I agree with her that Justin Trudeau needs to GTFO, right? Oh my God. We have a housing minister who used to be the immigration minister, and his housing legacy is fantastic. Sean Fraser, of course, but his housing legacy is mostly solving the problems exacerbated by his immigration legacy. We have an immigration minister who is enacting cuts that he doesn't want to defend to immigration levels because he's a bleeding heart liberal. We have 4 or 5, well, with Fraser, we now have 5 lame duck ministers who are not running again. The best solution the liberals have is to theoretically appoint Nate Smith to the housing portfolio in a move that the Globe and Mail reported was happening. Politico on Wednesday reported that Nate is mulling the decision. I don't know anything beyond the fact All I don't know if that distinction is that Politico couldn't get the sourcing that the Globe and Mail had, or whether or not there has been some change. I frankly have no idea what Nate is thinking. I wouldn't do it if I were him. I have communicated that I hope that he does not take a cabinet job to him. And I don't really care if anybody knows that. I think it's a mistake. I tweeted as much. If he does it, I guess we'll deal with the consequences of that. But this is where we are. We're at a place where this government is in deep crisis, where it is, where CTV is now reporting that the PM is being faced with options. We have a Liberal Party that seemingly wants him out. The analogy I used when Joe Biden was facing a similar threat is that, you know, sports teams where the coach is on the hot seat eventually goes. You could use any number of Doc Rivers teams, Eric Ten Hag at my Manchester United, um, various Tottenham managers, um, Arsenal. Arsenal has mostly avoided it, mostly because they had Arsene Wenger for so long and nobody had the balls to say it. But you know, if Mikel Arteta continues to struggle, I'm sure we're gonna see the Arteta out people. Um, if they potentially even lose to Chelsea, we saw it with Graham Potter at Chelsea. I don't know why I'm going. I do know why I'm going with Summit Soccer. I've been watching the Carabao Cup all day, but um, you know, you see it with, you know, you just it's very hard for coaches where they're for leaders, you know, if you go back into the political realm, you know, Rudd Gillard, Rudd, uh, Turnbull, Abbott, Turnbull, ScoMo. Once the genie is out of the bottle, once there's talk of a leadership bid, hell, even go back to Bob Hawke and Paul Keating in the 90s, right? Or go back to the various John Howard, uh, Peacock. Oh fuck, who was the other one? Who was the guy who did Fight Back? Like any of those leadership wars of the 80s and the Australian Liberals, you're just looking at a situation where the once the genie's out of the bottle, it's really, really hard to put it back in. And Houston, Johnny motherfucking Houston. Like all those leadership wars in the 90s, right? Where they just basically kept swapping in and out and in and out. Like once the genie's out of the bottle, it's really hard to put it back in. There are too many Liberal MPs who are implacably opposed to Justin Trudeau. I do not believe he has the ability to stay on and fight an election as prime minister. If he does, it will be both one of the most catastrophic mistakes that any Canadian prime minister has ever made and a stunning ability to manage the caucus. Well, actually, no, that's not true. It would not be a stunning accomplishment on Justin Trudeau's side. It would be a stunning abdication of their responsibility from the Liberal caucus. I assume none of them do this. I do know some caucus members read my work. If you let this man stay as leader, you will be betraying party and country. This is not a situation where party and country can be divided. If you genuinely believe anything close to the things that you say about Pierre Poilievre on a daily basis, if you genuinely believe that he is a threat to democracy, a threat to women's rights, threats to equality, threat to the future of the country, then it is your solemn obligation and your solemn duty to save us from him. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's stopping him. I mean, plenty of people are, but not enough. And that is my thing. If you are Mark Gerritsen, who has stood behind the PM for so goddamn long, who has repeated some of the dumbest, least honest talking points, all in the hopes of maybe one day, maybe becoming something. If you genuinely believe that Pierre Poilievre is the things that you routinely call him on Twitter, on social media, and in the House of Commons, it is your moral obligation to the country that you claim to care about to get rid of Justin Trudeau. But I know you're not going to because you're a feckless coward. You're a bitch. Fuck you. It's not good enough. We need caucus to grow a spine. We need them to get rid of Justin Trudeau for the good of the party. I don't know if they will do it. It would be a stunning failure for them to not force him out. There's nothing to be said. There's no honor in failure. Fuck off. Get this done. Allow the party to have a chance at a future. And yes, the difference between 40 seats and 80 seats does matter. You know, it's going to be really fucking hard if we're in third place, if we fall behind the block in seats, if we become a rump party of downtown Toronto, a few incredibly safe seats in Ottawa, Anglos in Montreal and Acadia, you know, it's going to be really goddamn hard to do. Rebuild. You know what's not going to happen? We're not going to raise the amount of money we raised from that Laurier Club event. We're not going to raise that much. The number of people who show up to these things, the number of people who essentially donate their way into the Christmas party are going to evaporate. We will lose talent. We will lose brains. We will lose all of the things that we need to rebuild to the NDP on our left, who are presumably going to elect a smarter leader than Jagmeet Singh, a less dishonest leader than Jagmeet Singh, and a leader who is more able to eat our lunch than Jagmeet Singh once he fails at this election. And so what we are looking at is a circumstance and situation where the future of the Liberal Party is incredibly precarious. And 80 seats and a viable path forward and a viable path to maybe at least holding Polyev to a minority government in 2029. Yeah, that might be the difference between, you know, millions of dollars in fundraising a year over the course of 4 years of a Polyev majority than being in third place and in the wilderness and having, I don't even fucking know who, Bill Blair or Mark Holland as our next leader. Because the other thing is that there's a hell of a lot of leadership candidates or theoretical leadership candidates or hypothetical leadership candidates in that 40 seat band that we would lose if Trudeau stays and we have a chance to win otherwise. And unless you want a leadership race of Mark Holland, Mark Gerritsen, and Bill Blair, because everybody else lost their fucking seats, this is what we're going to do. This is what we need to do. The Liberal Party needs to be saved. And if the PM isn't going to save it, if Katie fucking Telford is going to continue to isolate and ice everybody who has ever pointed out that they don't know what the fuck they're doing, as I have been doing from the outside, if we are going to continue to have an isolationist head up their ass PMO and a head up their ass prime minister, then somebody needs to be the one to fucking do it. And it is unacceptable, completely fucking unacceptable that there are days, there are weeks, and honestly, this has been true for 6 fucking months now, that it has been legitimately the case that I seem to care more about the future of the fucking Liberal Party of Canada than anybody actually fucking running the party. It's not good enough. Get your shit together. Get rid of Justin Trudeau. Leave him in Ottawa to fucking run the country for 3 more goddamn months, run a leadership race, and save us all from 270 seats of Pierre Poilievre, because that's what we're knocking on the door of. Get your fucking shit together, or this country will burn, and all of you will cement your names in political histories as the cowards who enabled a man-child narcissist with a chip on his shoulder to kill Canada's only viable national progressive party. Go fuck yourselves if you don't want to do it. Get your heads out of your asses and let's save this party.